Hi guys, I'm Balaji Chippada and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In continuation of our Python series for data science, in this video, let's learn everything about file handling. So far in the previous videos, we have learned how to create variables, what are data types, what are data structures, how you can handle data structures, and then how you can handle errors and a lot of other stuff about Python in detail. But we haven't touched about how you can handle files, right? How you can open a file, how you can read a file, how you can close a file, and how you can write something into a file, whether you want to overwrite something in the file or you want to append in the file. So we haven't touched any of these things. Now you might ask, why do we need these things, right? Let's say you have built a complex application, and inside that application you want to save something as an output. There are two ways to saving it. There are multiple ways, but majorly either you can save it into a database, maybe SQL database or Oracle database. It could be of any database if it is a complex structure, or else you can save it locally in a files as well, right? You can save it online as well, but it depends. But at that time you want to save some content or output of your code into a file. So at that time, how do you do it? That is where we are going to learn about all the file handling in this video. So without any delay, let's get started. I have created a sample example.txt file and I have uploaded in the Google Colab, and this is the content of that file. I have 4 lines of text saying hello there, welcome to Balaji Chippada YouTube channel. This video is all about file handling and happy learning. Now, how do you open a file in Python? You can just simply say open and give the path of your file. Because my file is in the same path as my Google Colab notebook, I'm just providing the name of my file. And when I execute this, I get a file object called text.io wrapper, and it has 3 parameters. Name is equal to example.txt and mode is equal to R. We will understand that in a bit, and encoding is equal to UTF-8. Usually when you open a file in Python, you either want to read the content of the file or maybe you want to edit the content of the file, right? That is where mode comes into picture. When you specify mode as R, you are saying that open this file example.txt inside a read only mode. That means you don't have access to edit the content of the file. And then by default encoding is UTF-8. UTF-8 is basically a widely used encoding system that represents every character as a unique numeric code. I don't want to go in detail about this UTF-8 encoding. If you want, you can read it on Google, but most of the times you don't need to specify this encoding. By default, Python will handle that as a UTF-8 encoding. Now that you have opened your file, how do you read the content of the file? That is the important step, right? That is where read function comes into picture. And when I execute this, I get all the content of the file printed out with a /n. /n is basically a new line in Python. If you see this, hello there is my first line. And in the next line, because of /n, I have welcome to Balaji Chippada YouTube channel. And then I have /n, and this video is all about file handling in Python. Okay, like this I get all the content using a read function. Now every time I cannot print all of this, right? That is where I'm saving this object into a variable called f. It could be any variable, maybe it could be Balaji as well. Because we are doing a file handling, I am using a variable called f. And if I execute this and if I print f, this is the same object as the one that we have seen before. Because it is of same object, I can use all the functions that are applicable to this object, right? Now if I say print f dot read, I get all the content of the file. It is very simple. Now here f dot read prints you all the content of the file. Now what if I want to print my content of the file line by line? That is where read line comes into picture. And if I execute this, it should print the first line. Oh wait, I'm getting empty as an output. It is not an error, right? I'm just getting nothing as an output. Why is that the case? Let me explain. There is an important concept called cursor. Let's assume this is your file, and inside your file there are 4 lines of code or 4 lines of text. It could be anything. Initially, when you say f equal to open file.txt comma read mode, it will initialize a cursor at the starting position of your file. And when you said f.read, it first read the first line and printed it. And then cursor goes to the next line and I get this as an output. and cursor goes to the third line, I get this as an output, and cursor goes to the fourth line, I get this as an output. And now the cursor is at the fifth line and there is no data at fifth line, right? Now when I said f dot read line, my cursor is at this point. That is why I'm getting nothing, because there is nothing in fifth line. Now how do you move back your cursor to the zero position? That is what you want, right? If you want to print the first line again, now you want to move back your cursor to the top. That is where seek comes into picture. F dot seek of 0. So what it will say is, no matter where your cursor is, if you say seek of 0, it will move back your cursor to the top. And if you execute f dot read line again, now the cursor is at the top, you will get the first line as an output. Now let's see that in detail. Now if I do f dot seek, now cursor is at the top, and if I do f dot print read line, I get the first line as an output. And now because first line is already printed, now cursor is at the second line, and if I execute this again, I get the second line as an output. And if I execute this again, I get third line, and if I execute this again, I get fourth, and if I execute this again, I get nothing. And if I execute seek of 0 again, it will go back to the first, and I got the first line as an output. Now if I do seek of 0 again, and if I execute this again, I get the same output, hello there. Hopefully you understood the essence of seek and cursor in Python. I have one more thing called f.readLine of 10. Now let's me execute this. Now because when I executed this here, my cursor is already done with the first line, my cursor is the second line, and when I say f.readLine of 10, I am saying print the first 10 elements of the second line. So that is why I got welcome to. Hopefully that is clear. What if I want to print all of the content of my file line by line? That is where for loops comes into picture. You can open your file and you can say for line in file print line, and it will print all of the content of your file line by line. Readlines is basically saying that get me the content of my file into a list. If you see, the content output is in a list. And now we have learned all of these things, we need to close the file as well, right? That is where dot close comes into picture. You can just simply do this and file is closed. And if I open this file again, my cursor initialized to the top again because we have closed the file here. Now when I opened the file, my cursor is at the top, and when I read line, I got the first line. And if I execute this again, now I will get the first line only, because whenever you are opening a file, you are resetting your cursor to the 0th position. Hopefully that is clear. Now if I show you the example.txt file, it is same content as before. So far we have done so many manipulations in reading the file, we haven't edited any of the content of this file. Now let's see how you can edit the content of a file. I have one more file called example copy.txt. Here I have two lines of code. Let's say I have new line 1 hello world, new line 2 I am amazing, and let's save this. So this is my content of example copy. Now let me open this file, okay, in W mode. That means we are in the write mode. And now let's open the content of this one. Nothing is there. So what happens when you open a file with W mode is it overwrites the content of your file no matter what. Let me open this file and then let me write this line, new line 1 hello world, new line 1, let's say I am in code. Now let's execute this and let me close the file and let me open this, and I get this new line 1. And if I open the file again and let me add two new lines, and if I close it, the whatever the content that I have inside my text file will be overwritten by these two lines. Now let me open this and let me open this copy.txt. Now I have my two new lines. Hopefully that is clear. And what if I say example new? So in this scenario, what happens is if my file is not present inside my file structure, and when you are trying to open in W mode, it will create the file itself. If I refresh it, I get the example new.txt. And if I open this, it will be an empty file because I am writing nothing in this file. Hopefully that is clear about writing a file. Now in this scenario, we have edited the content of the whole file. Now what if I want to append something to the file? I don't want to overwrite the content of my file. Now there might be scenarios you don't want to overwrite your file, but you want to keep on appending the data to your file, right? That is where append mode comes into picture. So let me open my file example.txt inside my append file. Now if I execute this and if I look at my file example.txt, all the content is same. But when I open this in W mode, all the content will be erased. I am saying file.write new line 1 hello world, and if I open the example.txt, okay, why is it not appearing this? Because we haven't closed our file. Now let me close this, and if I execute this again, and if I open example.txt, I get my new line 1 two times because I have executed it twice. Now let me open this again, and let me write something, and let me close the file. Now let me open this example.txt and I get the new line. See, when you are opening a file in append mode, you are adding the new line at the end of your file. You are not overwriting it. Now let's say example append.txt, because I don't have a file with the same name example append, right? If I open a file like this, it will create a file. See, example append.txt. Right now, as I haven't added anything to it, it is empty. Hopefully that is clear. Now let me close this. Okay, now let's see. So R is basically read only mode, and you cannot edit the content of your file. And W means write mode. If the file exists, it is overwritten. If the file doesn't exist, it is created. And append is basically the same as W, but it will not overwrite the content. It will just append at the last. And one more thing that I forgot to mention is, let's say, let me open this, and let me open this in R mode, and I will say new. And if I execute this, I will get an error, file not found, because I don't have a file with the same name as example append.new. When you are opening a file in read only mode, you need to make sure that you need to have the file in your file directory, or else it is going to throw you an error. We will talk about R plus W plus A plus in a bit. Okay, here whenever you are trying to open a file, you are saying open, and specifically you need to close it, right? So instead of doing all of that, we can just say like this: with open as file, what it will do is, once this is executed, the file automatically gets closed. So if I do like this, I get the content of my file and I don't need to close it. Now let's try one more thing called copy paste. Let's say I have a file called example.txt and I have some content inside of it, but I want to paste all the content of that file into another file called target. So what I would initially do is, I will open my file with open as source file, content equal to source file.read. So what I'm doing here is, I'm opening my example.txt into a variable called source file, and inside content I'm reading the content of my source file. Let me execute this, and if I print content, I get the content of my source file. Now, because I want to add it into a new file called target, either I can just say append or I can just say W, because the file is not existing here. If I use any of these W or A, it will create the file itself. And then I'm saying target file dot write. I'm passing the content variable from the previous file. And if I execute this, it will create a new file called target, and if I open this, I get the same content as my example.txt. Hopefully that is clear. How can you do this? If the files are very big, let's say example.txt, here the file is very small, it has only 7 lines of code. But if the files are very big, you can read the file in chunks. Let's not read everything, read in multiple lines. Let's say first 5 lines and append it to the new file, and then read the next 5 lines and append it to the new file. So likewise you can do it in chunks, or else you can just read line by line and add all of those lines to your target source. So let me show you that example. So initially what I'm doing here is, with open example.txt as read mode, and then inside that loop I am opening one more file called target2 as an append mode, because every time I read the line from the source file, I am going to append that into my target file. And if you see, I'm creating a new file called target2, and I'm iterating through my source file. For line in source file, I'm saying target file dot write the line. And if I execute this, this will be same as the before. This is basically copy pasting from the source to target line by line. This will be much better if you have a bigger piece of text. As you have seen here, if you don't have a file when you are opening in read mode, it will throw you an error, right? In the previous video we learned about try and accept block, right? So I have this piece of code, and because I don't have this file, this will raise an error. That is why I am keeping it inside my try block, and I have the exception as file not found error. And if I execute this, instead of getting an error, I get this message the file does not exist. This is how you will handle the errors in file. And then the next one is binary files. If you see all of these files, the data itself is basically a text data. Now let's take an example as an image. So if this is an image is basically a group of pixels, right? So if you have like this, so all of these pixels has values, and it is of between 0 to 255 or minus 255 to 0. All of these are numbers, right? These are binary. So if you are reading files of this format, instead of opening it as R, what you can say is open it as RB. B is basically binary. So let me show you this. I have an image here. This is a thumbnail of one of my videos, previous video. And what I'm saying is open my thumbnail as RB, and I'm saying read the content of the file. I'm just printing the content. If I execute this, this is my content. If you see, this content is much different than the one that we are dealing with, right? That is why we need binary in this scenario. Okay, now what if I want to copy one image to another image? By using the same code as this one, we can just say with open my image as RB as a source image, and then with open copy image, this will be the image which will be copied, and then by iterating through my source file, I am just pasting all of that inside my target file. If you see here, I'm using an AB, that means I'm appending every time. And if I execute this, it will create a copy image, which is this, and this will be same as the one that we have before, because we just copy pasted everything from content 1 to content 2. Now let's talk about R plus mode. As we mentioned before, when you open a file in read mode, you cannot change the content of the file, right? So let's take this example. I have an example.txt and I have the content as welcome to Balaji YouTube channel. This video is all about file handling and happy learning. Now with open, I'm opening this file in R plus mode. That means I can read the file and I'm printing the content of the file, and then I'm moving the pointer to the top and I'm saying write hello Python. Okay, and then I'm moving the content to the top and I'm just printing it for the whole updated content. Now let's execute this. So what's happening in this scenario? So initially I have this welcome to Balaji YouTube channel, and then this video is all about file handling and happy learning. So this is this one, and then I did file.write Python. So what it will do is it will start from this index and it will write this text hello Python in this place until this one. It will override the original content, and remaining everything is same as it is, right? Because if you are in R plus mode, you can write the content as well and you can edit the content. Hopefully that is clear. Now we have W plus mode. It is basically for both reading and writing. Now let me open this in W plus mode, and I can just write new content, because now we are in W plus mode. Whatever the content that is present inside your example.txt will get overwritten, and now we are adding new content. I'm just reading it. Now we are in W plus mode. That means you can read the file and you can write the file as well. And we have the A plus mode. A plus mode is basically you can append and read as well. If I do, like if I say, let me take this one example append, do we have data inside it? Let's say hello world, and let me save it. And if I say example append dot txt as A plus mode, and if I execute this, initially I have hello world, and I am writing appending this line, and when I printed it again, I get hello world and appending this line. So R plus, A plus and W plus are extensions of read, write and append, and we can use it in based upon the scenarios. Now the key points is R plus does not create a new file if it doesn't exist. If because of this you need to do it inside try and except block. And W plus is useful when you want to start a new blank file for both reading and writing. And A plus is best when you want to append a file while still being able to read from it. Okay. And whenever you are using R plus, W plus, and A plus, it's crucial to manage the file pointer using a seek method correctly, especially if you are switching between reading and writing operations with the same file context. And that's it for this video, guys. We have learned a lot in this video, like how you can open a file and how you can open a file in multiple modes: R, W, A, R plus, W plus, and A plus, RB, WB, a lot of other stuff, and how you can copy a file from one file to another file, and a lot of other stuff. Hopefully you learned something new from this video, and if you are liking what you're watching, please do subscribe and click that bell icon to get notified daily. And we will meet in the next video. Bye bye.